In 1564, in the city of Pisa, Italy, a child was born under a sky filled with stars. His name was Galileo Galilei. The world he entered believed the Earth stood still at the center of the universe. But Galileo would grow to challenge that very idea and change everything. Even as a boy, Galileo was fascinated by the world around him. He watched pendulums swing and water boil. He asked questions others didn't. Why did things move? What laws governed nature? At first, his father wanted him to become a doctor. Galileo entered the University of Pisa to study medicine, but during a lecture, he noticed a chandelier swinging rhythmically, and that changed his course forever. Galileo discovered that the time it takes a pendulum to swing depends on its length, not how far it swings. He had no stopwatch, only his pulse, but he observed carefully. It was the beginning of scientific timekeeping. He abandoned medicine and turned to mathematics and physics. Numbers and patterns became his language for understanding the world. His studies were unconventional, but powerful. At the time, ancient philosophers like Aristotle were seen as authorities. Aristotle said heavier objects fall faster. Galileo questioned this. Could they be wrong? Legend says Galileo dropped spheres of different weights from the Leaning Tower of Pisa. They hit the ground at the same time. Gravity, he showed, pulls all objects equally, regardless of weight. Galileo began teaching at universities, first in Pisa, then Padua. He was bold, engaging, and sometimes combative. He didn't just teach knowledge, he challenged it. In 1609, Galileo heard about a Dutch invention that used lenses to magnify distant objects. He built his own version and improved it. For the first time, he pointed it toward the sky. Through his telescope, Galileo saw what no one had seen before: craters on the moon, countless stars, and 4 tiny moons orbiting Jupiter. The heavens were not perfect and unchanging, as the Church taught. They were dynamic. When Galileo discovered the moons of Jupiter, he realized not everything revolved around the Earth. This was powerful evidence against the Earth-centered model of the universe. In 1610, Galileo published Sidereus Nuncius, the Starry Messenger. The book stunned Europe. It was not just science, it was revolution. Galileo became famous. He was invited to courts and honored by nobles. But his discoveries challenged religious teachings. Some praised him, others grew suspicious. Galileo embraced the theory of Copernicus, that the Earth orbits the Sun. It was a radical idea. But with his telescope, Galileo believed he had the evidence to support it. The Catholic Church had declared the heliocentric model heretical. Galileo was warned not to teach it as fact, but he continued to argue, sometimes indirectly, sometimes openly. In 1632, Galileo published Dialogue concerning the 2 chief world systems. It was structured as a debate, but one character, who defended the Earth-centered model, appeared foolish and resembled the Pope. The Church was furious. Galileo was summoned to Rome. In 1633, at age 69, he stood before the Inquisition. Accused of heresy, he faced punishment for defending science. Under threat of torture, Galileo recanted. He denied his support for heliocentrism. Legend says he whispered after, "And yet it moves." Whether true or not, the idea never stopped moving. Galileo was placed under house arrest for the rest of his life. He was forbidden to teach or write about the motion of the Earth, but in secret, he continued working. Even in confinement, Galileo wrote. He studied motion and falling bodies. He wrote 2 new sciences, laying the foundation for physics. His mind was still free, even if his body was not. In his final years, Galileo lost his sight. Yet, he continued dictating ideas to his students. Darkness fell around him, but his vision of the universe remained bright. In 1642, Galileo died at age 77. He was buried quietly in Florence. The church denied him a grand funeral, but history would not forget. Galileo's methods, observation, measurement, skepticism, planted the seeds of the scientific revolution. He taught us not what to think, but how to think. Before Newton explained gravity, Galileo laid the groundwork. He showed that motion follows laws, not miracles. He made science measurable. With his telescope, Galileo turned astronomy from philosophy into science. The universe became a place to be explored, not feared. Galileo's story is not just scientific, it is moral. He stood for reason in an age of authority. He chose truth, even when it cost him freedom. Centuries later, the Church acknowledged its error. In 1992, Pope John Paul II officially declared Galileo was right. It took 359 years. Galileo is now known as the father of modern science. His legacy lives on in every experiment, every telescope, every challenge to accepted truth. Galileo once wrote, "Nature is written in the language of mathematics." That belief echoes in every scientist who dares to look deeper. Galileo teaches us that truth is not decided by votes or power, but by evidence, by the courage to see and the courage to speak. From Galileo's first telescope to the James Webb Space Telescope today, we continue to explore the universe because he looked up first. Every time a student asks why, Galileo's spirit lives on. He opened the sky and invited us to wonder. He defied kings and popes, not to rebel, but to reveal. Galileo Galilei, the rebel of the skies, reached beyond Earth and brought the universe a little closer.